Hello, my dear students. Welcome to Business Economics channel. This is Dr. Dhimen Jani. I'm back with the introduction to inflation part 2. In this chapter, I'm going to cover the cost push and demand pull inflation, stagflation, inflationary gap, which was explained by the Keynes Anti-Inflationary Measures. Part 3 is also in pipeline. It is going to cover the natural rate of unemployment, deflation, causes, and the remedial actions. So I request you to subscribe and enjoy all the learnings. Let us begin with the next point, that is the types of inflation. So first point is the cost push inflation. Now in this type of inflation, there is increase in the price of goods and services due to increase in the price of factors of production. So there are three factors of production, namely land, labor, and capital. So if we hire the land, we have to pay the rent. If we hire the labor, we have to pay the wages. And if we hire the capital from the bank or any financial institutions, we have to pay the interest. So any increment in the price of these factors of production, that will ultimately increase the overall manufacturing cost of the product, and also the overall, that is, you can say, the selling price of the goods or services. So ultimately increase in any of these, or you can say all of these factors of production, that will lead to increase the selling price of the goods. Say for example, if interest rate of the loan is increased by the bank, then it will increase the overall cost, hence selling price will also increase. Let us understand by this graphical presentations. Okay, so the P1 is the initial price. Say for example, there is a 10 rupees price of the product, hence the demand of the goods or services is 9 units. Okay, now due to increase in these factors of production cost, the overall cost has also increased, and thereby the selling price is increased. So 10 rupees to 12 rupees. Now if the price is increased to 12 rupees, the demand of the goods and services would be reduced and it would be 7 rupees. That is law of demand. We'll discuss this chapter in another video presentation. But over here, what you need to see is, in cost push inflation, cost is pushing the price towards upward. Okay, so what is happening over here? Due to increase in the price of goods and services, factors of goods and services, the overall selling price will increase. And if the overall selling price is increasing, if other factor remain constant, then there would be reduction in the demand of the goods and services. Next point is the demand pull inflation. Now it is a situation where the demand of the firm's goods and services are beyond its production capacity. So if the income of the consumer increases, then consumers shall have more purchasing power to purchase goods and services. Hence the demand of the goods and services increases, but the production do not increase at the same pace. So the price of goods and services increases. Let's say for example, income of consumer rose to 25,000 from 20,000 per month. So but obvious, his purchasing power has increased by 5,000 rupees, so he will demand more goods and services. Let us understand by one graphical presentation. So the price of the particular product is 8 rupees, and over here you can see the income of the consumer is 10,000 rupees per month. Now let's say for example, if his income is 10,000 rupees, the price of the goods and services is 8 rupees, and his demand, this is at particular, that is aggregate demand, that is point A demand. Okay, now if the income is increasing by 2,000, that is 12,000, the demand of the goods and services will also increase, because 2,000 rupees his purchasing power has increased, so he will demand more goods or services. Okay, so the demand is increasing, thereby the price of the product shall also increase, because monetary power of the consumer has increased. That's why he is demanding more goods and services, so the price of the goods and services shall also increase. In short, what you need to understand is, in demand pull inflation, the consumer's income has increasing, that's why the demand of the goods and services is increasing. In cost push inflation, cost is pushing inflation towards upward. That means due to rise in the cost of the goods and services, factors of production, there is a rise in the price, while in demand pull inflation, due to increase in the demand of the goods and services, price is being increased. Next point, that is the stagflation point. Now stagflation is a situation, or you can say it is a combination of recession and inflation. It's a situation where the inflation rate is high, the economic growth rate is slow, and unemployment remains steadily. So three distinct characteristics of this stagflation. So it's a situation where the inflation rate is high. Now you understand what is inflation rate: sustainable increase in the price of goods and services, that is the inflation rate. So it is continuously rising. Economic growth is slow. This happens very rarely, because if inflation rate is high, economic growth normally it is high, but it is in stagflation it remains slow, and unemployment rate remains steadily high. So this is the worst situation for any country. Next point is the inflation gap, which was explained by the Keynes. Now let us understand this point. This gap exists when demand of goods and services exceeds production due to such factors, you can say higher level of overall employment, increase in trade activities, or increase in government expenditures. If you observe all these three factors, all these three activities, that all these three activities are actually adding income of the consumer. So if these three activities are executed in the economy, or they are happening in the economy, ultimately it will increase the purchasing power of the consumer, because it is increasing their income. So understand this inflationary gap by one graphical representation. So over here, if you can observe that there is a 92 rupees, that's the income of the consumer, and at this 92 rupees his demand of the goods and services is 7 units. Okay, now it's 100 rupees. So what is happening? There is a gap of 8 rupees. So there is an increase of the increment of the 8 rupees in the income of the consumer. So his demand is increasing by 2 units, that is now 9 units. Okay, so at 92 the demand of the goods and services is 7, and on 100 the demand of the goods and services is 9. So that 2 units of gap which was not expected, that gap is known as the inflationary gap. Okay, repeating once again, at the income of 92 rupees, the demand of the goods and services was 7 units, but due to these three activities or any of this activity, the income of consumer is now 100 rupees. So the demand of the goods and services is now 9 unit, which was expected only to be 7, but due to increase in the income of the consumer, now it is 9 units. Okay, so that increase or that gap which was not expected, that known as the inflationary gap. Moving on the next point, that is in anti-inflationary measures. Now let us understand these anti-inflationary measures one by one. First point is the bank rate, or which is also known as the repo rate. It is a rate at which commercial banks use to purchase finance from the RBI. As we know, the commercial bank used to provide finance to the traders, but in case of insufficient balance with the commercial bank, they used to purchase finance from the RBI. Okay, so the rate at which RBI used to provide finance to the banks, commercial banks, that is known as the bank rate or repo rate. Now how this repo rate affect the inflation? Now in these steps we are going to discuss how to control the inflationary situation. That means how to reduce the price of goods and services. Okay, let us understand by this table. Now this is the bank rate at which commercial bank take loan from RBI. This is rate at which trader take loan from the commercial banks, and this is the profit percentage of the traders, and this is money supply in the economy. This is the rate of inflation. Okay, so this is the first situation. 4% is the rate at which RBI used to provide finance to the commercial bank. Commercial bank used to add their 3%, that is 4 plus 3, and at 7% they used to provide finance to the traders. Now traders are getting rate of interest at 7%. Now the activity, or you can say the business in which they used to invest their money, they are getting the 9% rate of return. Okay, so they are getting 9% rate of return, and they are paying 7% to the bank. So 2% is the net profit. Okay, so money supply in the economy would be very high, because over here the commercial banks are providing the 7% rate of return, 7% rate of interest to the traders, and traders are investing and they are getting 2% extra. So it's, you can say, simply leverage process. Okay, so money supply in the economy is very high, and rate of inflation would be also high, because money supply in the economy is very high. Now let us understand, if the RBI wants to reduce the inflation in one particular sector, so what it is going to do? The rate of bank rate would be increased by 3%. For example, it is a 7% now. Now what is happening? commercial banks are getting finance from the RBI at 7%, so it is adding the 3% of its own percentage, that is 10%. Now the amount which trader used to buy at the rate of 7%, he was getting 2% profit. But suppose if he take the loan from the commercial bank at the 10%, he is getting only 9% profit, so he will be in the loss. So but obvious, any trader would not be in a position to hire the finance from the banks because he is running in loss. So the money supply in the economy would be low, and thereby the rate of inflation would come low. Next point is the reverse repo rate. It is a rate at which RBI accepts the deposit from the banks. Over here in repo rate, RBI provide finance to the commercial banks, but in reverse repo rate, RBI used to accept the deposits from the commercial bank. If the repo rate is high, then the inflation would be low because much of the money would be deposited in the vaults of RBI. Hence, in market the finance would not be available. That's why the inflation would be reduced. Next point is the open market operation. Now, it is an operation by RBI to control the inflation rate by purchasing or selling government securities which are in the form of statutory liquidity ratio. So as we know that Reserve Bank of India has placed many restrictions to the commercial bank, like certain limitations that certain amount of your deposit has to be in your CRR, that is cash reserve ratios, SLR, statutory liquidity ratio. So what RBI is going to do is, let us understand by this one calculation. Statutory liquidity ratio is presently suppose 18%. Total funds with the bank as in form of deposit, that is 100%. So as per SLR requirement, banks requires to purchase 18 crores of rupees deposits in form of government securities from RBI. Okay, so the money which is left with the money which is left with the commercial bank is 82 crore. So this 82 crore would be injected into the economy. Now, if there is an inflationary situation, RBI will increase the statutory liquidity requirement by 2%, that is 20%. So 100 crore rupees is the total funds. So SLR requirement would be 20 crores, and hence the money which was supposed to go in the economy is only 80 crore. 2 crore is retrenched, 2 crore is cut down. Okay, so the lower money would be in the lower money with the commercial banks, hence they would not be able to provide more finance to the traders. Okay, next point is the cash reserve ratio, or which is known as the CRR. Now, it is a rate at which the banks are required to keep certain amount of cash on hand by the RBI, that is high CRR, low inflation. Let us understand with the same example. If CRR at the current situation is 4%, 100 crore deposited with the bank, so CRR requirement would be 4 crore. So only 96 crore rupees would be available for commercial banks to disburse. Now, if the rate increases by 3%, that is now 7%. So commercial banks required to place 7 crore rupees as a CRR, and hence only 93 crore rupees would be available for them to disburse to the traders. So there is a reduction in the money supply with the commercial banks, and there would be reduction in the money supply to the traders. And is the directives from the RBI. RBI can write letters, circulars, and can call for the meeting to morally persuade the commercial banks not to finance those sectors which are suffering from high inflationary situations. So RBI can pressurize the commercial banks. It would be moral pressures to commercial banks not to finance these sectors. Next point is the fiscal policy. Now, this refers to the policy where government decides its policy on sources of funds and applicable pattern of the expenditures. That is how government is raising its finances and how it is making the expenditure, that is known as the fiscal policies. So in order to control the inflationary situation in particular sectors, the government of India decides the expenditure pattern. Next point is the indexation. It is not anti-inflationary measure. Actually, it connects the rate of inflation with the employee salary as a dearness allowance, which is oftenly known as the DA. So let's say, for example, there is 5% increment in the inflation. Governments will increase the salary, or you can say will increase the dearness allowance by 5%. So it would be net offset, 5% increase in inflation and 5% increase in the inflation rate. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe and enjoy all the learnings. Thank you.